might start there.
Yeah.
How was the Philippines?
Yeah, it's been awesome. Obviously, I've only been there for the last 6 or so months there as well, and it obviously exceeded some of my expectations. The people in the Philippines are fantastic. They're the loveliest people that you ever meet. They're really welcoming, and to be able to assist those guys have been really, really amazing in that sense as well. But yeah, just experiencing different bits of the culture and how they adapt, and I guess the football in that sense as well is really
because they love it over there.
Oh,
it's massive.
The fans there, I could not believe. We were at a friendly game, and there's tens of thousands of people rocking up to the games,
kidding.
and they're
That's
all
immense.
on the autographs and everything. It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, right. And so you've just come back from recently a tournament with them. What tournament was that?
Yeah, so that was called the SEA Games, or the Southeast Asia Games. It's basically equivalent of a Commonwealth Games in that sense as well. So yeah, they had a mini tournament there, and that was based in Thailand.
Okay, and going into the tournament, let's be honest, you and I had spoken about how this tournament might go and everything, because you were just starting the clinic here right as the tournament ended. And I think after the first couple of games, the instinct was it is going to be very hard to progress into the finals and keep going on and on and on, which eventually did happen. How was that experience being a part of that?
Yeah, so obviously their first game, they actually had a 1-0 loss, and it was a bit of a shock to the system, and it was probably a lower ranked team that they played against as well. So essentially from there, they just went on a winning streak, and they just we kept doing really well, the girls, and we eventually won gold, which was exciting, and I think that was the first time that any Filipino team has actually won a gold medal in football in that space. So it was really, really exciting. Yeah,
great way to start off your step into the female football world. And I think that's something that would be great to discuss is, all right, you've had experience for quite some time now. You were, you started at grassroots, then you went Preston, had a couple of years there. You worked your way up through Western United, through the academy setting, up into the first team, and you spent a good chunk of your career in men's football. And you've now opened up this different chapter experiencing women's football. Has there been any significant changes or differences that you've found across the two types?
Well, to be honest, the thing is the goals are the same in terms of, an injured athlete. They're all the same. They want to get back into playing football or sport as soon as they can. So in terms of how it is, they all got the same goals, and they're motivated more than ever. So it's not really that you're adapting too much or changing too much, but there might be one or two individual things that you might look at a little bit different in the female space. But again, the girls are really receptive in terms of what they give to us and the information they want to take on, and they really want to strive to get better. And I think that's probably the big difference that I've noticed between the men's space and the girls' space there, that they're really wanting to learn more. They want to, they've got the notepads out and they're really learning.
I think that's what it is. My experience, I never did Philippines women's national team, but I did my grassroots exposure in women's sport, and the amount of wanting to be a part of the education and a part of the learning was really important to them, because I think often with some of the male athletes we worked with at Western together, we'd tell them, go and do what you got to do. Yeah. I don't think they really cared. I don't think they were just like, yeah, okay, I got to do that. Whereas I think when you're telling these female athletes, they want to know exactly why they need to do it, and they want to buy into the process. So I think being a physio like yourself as well, where you have good clinical reasoning for why you're giving stuff, I'm sure they buy in even better much quickly.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's literally just explaining to them why we're doing certain exercises, what the end goal is, and how that actually gets them closer to what they want to achieve. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest difference that I've found, is just getting those, a little bit more detail and explaining myself a little bit more in that sense for the better, so they can actually have a good understanding and their levels of getting motivated and, buying in. You can't have a question as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And look, I think the educational piece is something that we've really been trying to push here at full speed. Obviously, since coming on in the last, I think it's almost 4.5, 5 months now here, which has been exciting. I think the big thing we've tried to do is, yes, we want to emulate a sporting context like we are. Our full speed performance athletes, we want to be like they're our club, they're our athletes for our team. But I think then beyond what maybe we had done at Western, we're going to really push the education and really make sure that all the athletes know what they're doing quite well. But in your opinion, having worked in sport, having worked in clinical settings, what do you find is, maybe let's start with the hardest thing. What is the hardest thing in terms of differences working in a clinical setting compared to sport that you have found over your years working in clinics?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing is, in the clubland, you get to see these athletes every single day, so you know what you've given them, how they've actually responded. You get to have those conversations with them, and you actually get to see them in their environment in that sense as well. So that's probably the biggest difference. You've got a lot more contact time, and you can see them do the activity in their own environment, which is nice to see in that space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas clinic, you probably are in your space, and it's a little bit different in terms of you're not quite there at the football. You don't see their demands exactly. So that's probably the challenging point that I've found between working in elite sport and, I guess, clinic space.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing is, when you're at the elite level, you have access to a lot of high level equipment, testing equipment, and all of our rehab processes and the Western way that we wanted to rehab was highly objective. We removed the subjectivity. We removed the purely opinion-based rehabilitation and made it objective. And I think not having GPS data, some clinics don't have valid testing capabilities. You might not have the ability to be filming people for biomechanical analysis. I think that is a real difficulty that people can come across. And a difference that we have here is that we have the ability to get some of those objective measures. And in your experience, you're new here now. You've been with us now for about 2 months. And you've worked across, a fair few clinics all the way back in motion days at the very start. What do you, if we talk about the difference in the clinical setting that we've created here at Full Speed, compared to what you've experienced elsewhere, what differences do you notice? Yeah,
well, I guess that's probably where it starts, my attraction or my interest into Full Speed. Coming and having a look at the facilities, having a look at the athletics track, having a look at, the VALD equipment that they're able to use, so testing jumps and groins and hamstring. They're all tests that we use at Western United in that elite space. So I think it's amazing to see that, what I was doing, I could easily reproduce in this setup as well with, the sub-elite population or, your general population in that sense as well. So to have that access to all these resources, I was a bit blown away by, to be honest, in terms of, what Full Speed is providing for these guys as well. So I think that's been the biggest difference in terms of that resource. And then I guess their model, the model of how they rehab athletes, is very similar to the way that obviously we've done it in the past with our elite athletes, is looking at, what do we need to tick off before we can get back to running? How does it look like from a safety perspective that we're going to feel super confident that these athletes can go play their week in sport, even though we're not watching them and monitoring them as closely, but we know with the confidence that they've ticked all the boxes, they've done all the testing, and, we can feel fairly confident. So I think that's probably the biggest thing with Full Speed, that you're able to really test, retest, measure these things and actually see them, how they move, and have a look at their biomechanics side of things, because you've got that athletics track as well. So
yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that is almost dying out in the physiotherapy space now is this consult by consult model, where you might see someone once a fortnight, once a month, and try and do what you can in that little half-hour block you have with them. But I think it's trying to actually increase that contact time. Like we say, with elite athletes, they have the benefit of, there were periods where we were at Western and we were doing 21, 22 days straight because of our rehab athletes. Because at the end of the day, we're just trying to get them back as quick as we can. And so we're just there every single day to do whatever we need to do. And you can imagine if they're coming in at 8 a.m. for, some treatment, they're getting on pitch, they're doing gym, additional treatment at the end, that's 3 hours. Now, we can't replicate that here entirely. But the model that most clinics are moving towards, and we've probably taken to another extent, is being able to have unlimited contacts at our facility here. And we have our strength coaches on floor, and our physios just roaming around as you need. And then being able to see your physio regularly, I think gets you as close to that as you can be without actually being an elite sporting club.
Yeah, agreed. Totally. Yeah.
So it's that's really attracted me to when I was brought on board here and looking at what are the upsides and where this business can go. I think they already had the model down pat. And it's now one of the fun things that we've been doing over the last, couple months since you've been on as well, is prior to when you came, I was spending this time building out our philosophies of how we're going to rehab. Because, again, speaking to what we said before, objective measures, we're not doing this subjectively. We're not doing this based off just opinion. Yeah, you look about right. It's purely objective. I was branching out for each injury, what we should be looking for. And I laughed when you came on because I thought Dan's going to have the exact same opinion because he pretty much taught me everything I know. so all of these templates that we've got out there, we've both worked on over time together, and we'll continue to be fleshing those out over the next little period, which will be a lot of fun because again, the side of the cognitive side for us of going, this probably worked at elite level, and maybe saying, an ISO 30, we're expecting 550 newtons of force with a 10% asymmetry before they can do zone 6. Makes very difficult to do with sub-elite and gen pop athletes.
Yeah, for sure.
So it'll be something that's really fun to kind of play around with over the next couple of months.
No, I agreed.
One other thing I wanted to ask you about, a bit off the cuff. This is going to throw in the deep end a little here. One thing that I think is hard for clinics to manage is the prescription and delivery of on-field rehab. Okay, now for some people, I think this is underestimated as how important this actually is. And I think when you get into the elite space and you run these sessions, you go, wow, this is where most of the magic happens. But in this clinical setting, obviously here we have our Monday night and Saturday morning run sessions. How do you feel like you would have to adjust your prescription and delivery? It's delivered by our S&C coaches, but how do you feel like you have to adjust your prescription to match this without GPS units compared to what we do? Or do you have to change your prescription? Is it the same?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And obviously, whatever we do, whether it's full speed athlete that's the weekend warrior, whether it's an elite athlete, we look at what they want to achieve at the end of the day. If it's what do they want to get back into? And so we're always adjusting based on their end goal. And so we always kind of reverse engineer or work backwards. All right, how do we get this athlete or this weekend warrior back to what they want to do? So we're almost always adjusting from that point of view and making sure that they're responding well to that load and their running capacity. So I think while I've spent 4 years doing the rehab role, it's been really good, and you can get really picky with those numbers and really focus on the exact number as well. But I think at the end of the day, looking at their technique, looking at their pattern, looking how they're actually moving as opposed to looking at some arbitrary numbers, give us a bit more of an insight in terms of how we can progress or regress that particular athlete. So
and I think that's the conversation of quantitative over qualitative, or the other way around, qualitative over quantitative data. And I think it's probably something that in the sports science and physio realm, maybe we get a little bit too lost in the quantitative data. In that they've hit their volume, pull them out. They've hit their HSR, pull them out. Whereas maybe the first 100 meters of high speed running that they did was clunky and they didn't actually get a decent hamstring load, or we weren't happy with the biomechanics of their first kilometer of their run. And so we want to discount that. And so I guess if we do take the quality, we'll get a little bit more consistency in what actually is being prescribed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll finish out with what you've got coming up. You're about to shoot off again. It's the pleasure to have you, but then obviously with the international duties, it's in and out semi-regularly. What's happening? What tournament? What's going on?
Yeah, so we're actually going to go on a 3-week camp. We're going to spend a bit of time in the Philippines over there. Spend 2-3 weeks really getting the girls ready to go to prepare for the Asia Cup. So we're lucky enough that's actually hosted in Australia this year. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it. And we've actually got our first game at the start of March, and we're playing against the Matildas. So it'll be really exciting.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah,
That'll be a stacked stadium. That'd have to be the biggest crowd you've ever worked.
Yeah, I think it's probably actually a sold out crowd already.
Yeah.
I think at Optus Stadium they're playing there. So
yeah, wow, that's very exciting. And give me an early prediction, Asia Cup. How far do you think you guys are going to go?
we're going to go to the grand final against
We're
Matildas.
going to the grand final. We're going to come back to this moment when you guys are in the grand final and go see Dan Calder.
Yeah, that's right.
That's exciting. That's good to hear.
Final.
Well, enjoy it, and we'll be watching, obviously, to see how the Philippines go, but we'll still be back in the Tillies. But no, enjoy the experiences. Obviously, these sorts of crowds and this atmosphere is rare to come by. So will be really exciting.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Thanks for that.
No worries at all.